am a huge monogamist at heart. I want undying commitment from the person that I am dating and that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I give that to them and I expect that in return. And I think our society's playing with that boundary is ultimately leading to a complete breakdown of healthy relationships. It's why you're seeing the vast majority of Gen Z unhappy in their relationships. It's why we have the lowest marriage rate since America began recording marriage rates in the 1860s, and we have the highest divorce rate as well. So we're unhappy when we're dating. We're not getting married. If we do get married, we end up getting divorced. And as a result, Pew Research has found that our generation is just taking ourselves off the market entirely. We decided it's not even worth it. So I think that's a huge component.
Are you talking about that recently released data from Pew? I mean, there's a whole bunch of data points, but the big one that I took from it was, I think it was comparing men and women between the ages of 18 to 29, and they found that women between the ages of 18 to 29 were twice as likely to be in relationships than men in that same age group.
But interesting study. So the first one that I referenced, the majority of Gen Zers, if you are in a relationship, you are unhappy. I think the figure from Pew, if I'm remembering correctly, and obviously I don't have it right in front of me, was about 73% of us who are dating are unhappy, really unhappy in our relationships. Those of us who aren't dating are intentionally not putting ourselves on the dating market for either casual or committed relationships. But the study that you're referencing was fascinating. That came out a few weeks ago. That women our age are more likely to be in relationships than men, which makes you think, who is everybody dating at the end of the day? If the women aren't dating the men, then how did that statistic end up coming to fruition?
What crosses my mind is I think there's perhaps two explanations. One, women in that age group are dating older men, 30 to 40. But I think the bigger thing is that women are maybe think they're in a relationship or are in a relationship and they're sharing higher quality guys. So, and there's this concept called hypergamy. Women are all chasing after the top tier of men. So a lot of women are happier sharing a top tier guy than settling for a guy that's actually on their level.
So,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with you. I think I made like a TikTok the other day that was like, get yourself an average man, ladies, or something like that. Because like the majority of your audience, I would say, is average males, right? We're like,
there's some chads.
Well,
there's
yeah,
some chads
but
for sure.
But it's it's like what, less than 5% of men are making like $100,000 a year in America or something like that. Like it's really low. So
most people are average.
Yeah, just average. Like, so I think we need to normalize the fact that like, if you get in a relationship, he doesn't have to be making the same or more money than you, right? Because that's true equality and like equity or whatever, however you want to phrase it. It's about what you give to the relationship. And so whether that means that you're a stay-at-home mom and he's out there working full-time or vice versa, it's about like everybody doing their part, whether you're man or woman, whatever role you want to play. So.
Yeah, but here's the problem is that you basically, what you have going on in the dating marketplace is average women don't want average guys.
I'm encouraging them to. That's what my podcast is about.
Call me crazy. Why wouldn't average women just decide to stop being average ourselves and raise the standards for what we expect from the men that we're dating?
Sorry, explain that one more time.
Rather than settling for an average guy, why wouldn't we just demand more from the men that we're dating?
Because it's very hard for some people to take.
Men respond extremely well to boundaries. They do psychologically. If you set a boundary for a man, either intentionally or unintentionally, he will honor that boundary. For example, if you let him continue getting away with cheating on you and being half in, half out of a relationship, being a situationship for months upon months upon months without ever committing to you or wanting to put a label on things, that's a boundary that you've set, saying it's acceptable for me to be treated that way. Why wouldn't we as women, actual feminism, I suppose, to be theoretical about this, demand more from the men that we're spending our lives with?
I agree. And I think, like, here's where the problem lies, right? Men end up leaving because if that girl that's demanding respect and demanding boundaries, now she becomes high maintenance to them. This is, again, I'm speaking anecdotally, but I've heard this from men before. Now she becomes high maintenance, so they're leaving and they're going to find somebody that just says yes all the time.
So what if we all did it? I hear all the time, all men want are sex. All men want is sex. All men want is sexual partners. What if we as women just said, we're not okay with that anymore?
Holla system.
We want more. Wouldn't that force men to rise to that occasion. And similarly, men who might be listening to this, you should be going after women who expect those boundaries, because a rising tide lifts all ships, and that's going to improve.
Well, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, I think we can say in an ideal world, wouldn't it be fantastic if we did away with hookup culture? And I think that is desirable, but I don't think, I think the culture war has honestly been lost to decadence and degeneracy. So
there's no hope.
I mean,
lost.
I think the culture war has been lost because you have academia, you have journalism, you have the mainstream media, which is all basically very, and without really going so much into politics, it's very left-leaning. Mm-hmm. Every single university in the country has a feminist studies, a gender studies, a women's studies program. I mean, now this is getting into men's rights. There's no equivalent men's studies or men's rights things in education. We're 2 blocks away from UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara. It's frequently ranked the #1 party school in the U.S. Major hookup culture here, and I would say across most universities and colleges, there is a major hookup culture. And then beyond college, there's a major hookup culture where it's just casual sex, situationships, all this stuff. I really think it's going to be a challenge to walk that back. I don't see
how about instead of walking it back, we as a generation and as a society acknowledge we are at the end of our rope, that we've never struggled more as a society from a cultural perspective than we are right now. Despite living in arguably the most progressive and advanced society ever, we're miserable. So much so that a third of us as women in our teenage years, and a significantly higher portion of men in their young adult years, say we don't even want to be here at all. So maybe rather than walking back, we choose a new path forward.
Well, but and you consider yourself pretty conservative, right?
Yeah,
so,
secret's out. I'm extremely conservative.
Yeah.
Shocker.
One thing that occurred to me is, social media and dating apps, mm-hmm. I think that these are majorly at the forefront of hookup culture, all this stuff. So government intervention, how do you unwind the damage that social media and dating apps has done?
Well, that's the problem. You can't unwind, in my opinion. And this is the really hard reality of where we go from here. I work a lot with generations older than us, and I cannot tell you how often every day I hear Gen Z is beyond all hope. Gen Z is destroying America. Your generation will be the end of us. When in reality, somebody else built this world that we have grown up in and have really struggled to come into adulthood in, and now has been dropped in our laps, and we have no idea what to do with it moving forward. Technology is a quintessential experience of what our day-to-day life is like, what reality is like. It involves our school, our jobs, our dating relationships, our sex is happening online. Let's just be totally honest. We've had a really long conversation about that on this podcast. I don't know that you can walk it back. I think we as a society would have to come to a cultural conversation point and change minds and culture from the inside out, rather than regulatory measures to do that, by saying, this is not working. We need to do more. I sound crazy that I'm one of the only people in my own life that has never downloaded a dating app, nor have I ever wanted to. I've never had a desire to. I don't seek out opportunities to watch adult content. I don't surround myself with opportunities to do that because I've set a different standard for my life and encourage the other people in my life to do that as well. Imagine if we all banded together, regardless of politics, where everybody is seeking to divide us on this issue, and start today by saying, this is not working. Generation Z is falling apart at the seams, and clearly our dating life is a great place to start that needs more help than almost any other aspect of our culture. What can we do differently, returning to traditional values, but in a new way that would take us to a stronger future?
I don't think it can be undone, honestly. I think it's just going to be the status quo. You have basically the destruction of the nuclear family. That's gone. You have feminism.
It's not gone yet.
Well,
people are attempting to.
It's not gone, but isn't it the majority of people are being raised in single mother households?
People say it's acceptable. The majority of Americans say it's acceptable for people.
Well, that and the study of single mother households, you're like 75% or something like that more likely to drop out of high school, more percentage to go or get arrested, all that kind of stuff. Single mother households are not good for kids. They're just not. I understand there's circumstances where some men leave and there's nothing you can do about it, but that's the thing, that's why I'm divided on that issue, because if we make this general statement like, you know, keep the nuclear family together, but if he leaves, how is it her fault, you know? And then you could say like, well, she picked a bad guy, but
right. Well, there are ideal and unideal circumstances,
right,
for sure. But I guess just more generally, not pigeonholing ourselves in the single parent household conversation, I'm curious what all of you would say. Do you think that our generation is happy? Do you think that we're thriving? Do you think that this progressive society that we've spent so many decades trying to build a utopia to live in is working?
I don't think any
No.
like previous generations were either happy. I wouldn't say happy either. Like obviously Gen Z's like hookup culture, blah, blah, blah. They're so blindsided by that, but it's because it's just like occupying them. Like living in a college town, living here in Isla Vista, I go out, I see people have meaningless hookups, all this stuff. But to them, it just like, that's what college to them is about. And that is kind of like ingrained into their minds from previous generations of people too.
So how do we stop it?
We can't.
Yeah, I want to have faith that we can like do a drastic turnaround, but I don't think it is. The internet in itself, there's so much privacy of what somebody could do on their phone anyway, that like, I think we're too far gone, honestly.
I also genuinely believe that people don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, I think one big issue is, so let's talk a little bit about divorce too. So I think there's really two solutions to the divorce issue. Is either so men are disincentivized to get married because of the financial risks that are involved. And, you know, men are waking up to the fact that 50% of marriages end in divorce, 80% of marriages are 80% of divorces are initiated by women. So one of two things or both things have to happen. Either we as a society, we need to re-stigmatize getting divorced, which right now there's no longer any social stigma. There used to be. There's no longer any social repercussions to getting divorced. That's not going to happen. So the only thing that can happen is we need to change the marriage laws to re-incentivize men to want to get married. So there can no longer be, and that might come to the detriment of some women, because a woman who does fully sacrifice her career to raise a family, there is to some degree a legitimate argument to be made to continue supporting her in the event of a divorce. However, I mean, I don't want to get too far down that. There are some arguments to be made there. There are definitely arguments for child support because it's for the benefit of the child. However, the way it's currently is, women are incentivized to get divorced because there's a financial reward. So you never sign a contract with someone who is rewarded for breaking it, and if the male's the breadwinner, the woman's not, and there's a dispute in the relationship, it can be very tempting to be like, well, if I divorce him, I get this much money and I don't have to deal with him anymore. So I think that probably the marriage laws have to be rewritten. However, go ahead.
I was going to say, so the law doesn't specifically say, you know, women get all the money in divorce, right? It says whoever is making the most income is getting alimony.
So yes, if the woman's you're right. If the woman's the breadwinner, then
Halle
she
Berry
gets
went for it.
divorced.
Yeah.
If she gets divorced, then she might be paying alimony payments to the men. However, the stats also further show, I think it's like 97. It's either 90 or 97% of alimony payments go from men to women. So there's that, and then
Zenith who donated $99.99.
Yo, thank you, man.
Hello, Brian. You're a legend. Keep up the work. Do you think making $1 million a month can get me almost any girl in America? Dubai oil geek / Prince, by the way.
You're a oil geek prince, by the way. Hold on, I got something for you.
I drink your milkshake.
Favorite movie.
I drink it up.
Yo, thank you, man. What was it? $1 million a month? He said, $1 million a month. We'll get you any girl in the U.S. I think you need more than just money. Yeah, you need more than just money in the U.S. You need the entire package in the U.S. I think. Okay, so to bring it back, we were talking about marriage. Right. So, divorce. Oh yeah, 97% of alimony payments go from men to women. So, but in addition to that, even if whether it's the man's the breadwinner, the woman's the breadwinner, there's a bias in the court system against men. So I mean, I don't know if they've done studies on this, but I'd be curious to say if even in situations where the woman's the breadwinner, if there's a little more leniency, perhaps men are less likely to seek alimony. I'm not entirely sure on all those details, but there's 100% of bias in family court systems when it comes to child custody and when it comes to alimony.
Well, I think it depends on where you live, right? Like if you're living in a predominantly conservative area in America, it's like Mississippi or like places where, I'll just say women's reproductive rights aren't legal. I think they usually side with the men. Like,
no.
I don't
Honestly, in some ways, this is like kind of a little advanced take on this. Feminism and conservatives have a few things in common. Women need to be protected. Like there are. It's a different. I'm not sure exactly how to articulate this, but whatever state you're in, there's a bias against men in the court system. Doesn't matter what state. It's worse in liberal states, but there is a bias against men in the court system.
so I agree. Like, I grew up with a single dad for a little bit, right? My mom was like, she had her own issues, and so I had a very strong relationship with my dad. My dad's like my best friend. So, is there?
It's about to come in. So
So yes, so he got screwed over by the court system plenty of times. He tried to file a no contact order against her, all this kind of stuff, got denied. So I agree that there's like a stigma, but wouldn't like, I don't agree with any extremes for anything, but in that scenario, I'd rather have, this is going to sound so horrible, but